Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor. And let's just jump right into this. We had the Preserve go down last weekend, and it brought a pretty thrilling finish. Yet again, we had Ricky winning by 1 over Eagle, Paul McBeth coming in third, and normally we only do the top 3, but Gannon Buhr, 16-year-old, came in fourth. We'll talk about that again in a second. But part of the reason I think that the Preserve has been able to deliver back-to-back thrilling finishes has been the 18th hole.
Yeah.
Because the 18th hole is a par 5 that is capable of producing realistically 3s through 6s. I saw some 7 and 8s in the field. I think I even saw a 9 in the field. But realistically, there's OB when you're approaching the hole and stuff like that, so where you could get a 5 or a 6 on it, but the pros are capable of 3ing it as well.
Yeah.
So if you're within like 2 strokes going to the final hole, you got a shot still.
I think I've decided that because of the nature of disc golf and just the way scoring works in the sport, that a hard par 5, or at least a par 5 where 3, 4, and 5 are all in play, like at least 3 different possibilities, it makes for the most interesting finish.
Well, the same with a 4, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean,
it's really just,
I like the 5.
I like the 5.
I think in disc golf, I think the 5 you have a better chance of having that 3-stroke possibility, whereas a 4, a lot of times 4s are a little bit tougher to do that. I'm a fan of the finishing hole. It was really exciting.
Yeah, because I think
legitimately too a tough eagle even for the biggest arm.
Yeah.
So like that is why I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean it's just like whenever there's a par 3 finishing hole that's not tough, not like a tough par 3, because there's some tough par 3s where a 3 feels good,
right,
and it can play kind of like a par 4 where there's a 2, 3, 4. But where it's just a normal par 3, it kind of like coming down the stretch going into this final hole, it wouldn't have been exciting.
Yeah,
because it would have just been as soon as the tee shot lands, you know whether it's over or not.
Right. It was definitely anybody's game. The whole stretch was not, even though a lot of the holes weren't super difficult, what was saving the course was the wind was helping, and then also the greens and the pin placements. I think I've decided from this year, and they did it a lot on the golf courses with the bunkers earlier in the year, but disc golf has started to get a lot smarter with pin placements, making upshots very treacherous and very difficult, to where Eagle McMahon or Paul McBeth is staring down a little putter length upshot and throwing it 30 feet short and left or 50 past the basket because of how tough the greens are. And like that is a big thing that has been underutilized in disc golf, is just how much harder you can make a hole by making that pin just a little bit closer to a natural hazard of some sort, like a big downslope, or an actual hazard like a bunker or an OB line, to where it's very simple to do. And another thing I'd like to see in the future is different pin placements on different days. I realize that requires a lot of maintenance, especially if the course is permanent, but I think there's a lot more possibilities that have been explored thus far in disc golf.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pin placement in greens is kind of the next development in course design.
That's such a fun thing in golf, to where imagine in disc golf, you're playing USDGC, for example, and they've experimented with some different pin placements. But you get to moving day and all the pins are just in green light position, to where everybody is allowed to just run shots, attack. And so you see, the scores all of a sudden, just everybody, it's like people love the Preserve, right? Because they love that there's like all the scoring going on. Like people enjoy that. A lot of people do, at least. You can have that within a lot of tournaments just by making pin positions easier for one day out of the round or out of the event, so that you have a day where it feels like birdie or died, where it's the moving day. And, that's not super difficult to accomplish.
No, yeah. And I also think that having treacherous greens, kind of like you were talking about, like a natural drop off or hazard behind, it also makes the putts that much more impressive.
Oh, yeah.
A 50-foot putt on a wide open hole, it's impressive, but then a 50-foot putt on a wide open hole when there's a massive drop off behind, it just immediately adds that, like, holy cow, like he went for that.
It adds to your upshot strategy too, because if you have just a flat surface, that guy doesn't care where he is within a 30-foot radius.
No, he just needs to get within 30 feet.
Whereas it's a thing in golf where guys are trying to leave the ball underneath the hole to where they're putting uphill. It's the same in disc golf. If you have a giant slope, you want to be putting uphill. So it becomes then part of your strategy to trying to leave the disc below the pin. And that just makes the game harder and more complex as well.
See, I'm actually on the opposite side. I like being up on top
You
of the
like
hill
putting
looking down.
downhill? It's
I'm
easier.
terrified uphill putts because
See,
I always leave them short and they always stand up and roll back behind me. But it's a strategy thing.
Yeah.
Because I
I
know
mean, it's
my
your
game.
preference. It's
Yes,
your
I know
preference.
my game. So if I see a hill slope, I'm trying to run the basket and end up 10, 15 feet behind it on the uphill side.
Yeah.
Versus other players, you're right, would rather have the safer putt and be on the downhill. But regardless, it makes me think about my upshot a lot more.
Yeah.
If it's flat, we're not really thinking about it. We're just getting
Right.
close.
Right.
So you're right in that the hill, depending on whether person's preference up on top or below, it does make you think about it. And the same with hazards and drop offs and stuff like that. But the course wasn't as much of a birdie fest this year. I think last year we did a whole podcast on kind of like birdie or die golf, essentially. And it was basically because of the preserve.
Right.
Because the preserve was, I believe Nico won with like a 41 under par. This year, Ricky won with like a 35. I think where Ricky shot this year would have put him in like 8th or 9th place last year.
Yeah.
Was kind of the difference there.
Well, and right now with our game is we know a course does its job because the way the field is right now in really men's and women's divisions. Because of the way the field is, we know a course has done a really good job when the best players, which right now we have very clear best players, are rising to the top. And the Preserve was able to do that this year. You know, our top 3 premier players in the game right now were first, second, third. So that's, that to me says, the course did its job.
Yeah. Now, speaking to the finish, I was pretty surprised that Eagle didn't take it down.
I was too. I thought it was his.
He was in prime position. He ended up hitting like a super clutch putt. I believe it was on
That
16.
putt was sick. That putt was. I thought that putt was unmakeable.
Yeah, when he hit that, like in my head, I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's done. But then on 17, which is a shorter par 3, it's like 240 feet. He just shanked it
Yeah.
straight into the trees to the
Well,
right.
they literally they gave him the commentator's curse too, saying that he hadn't hit the gap all week, and I was like, I just knew after they said, I was like, oh, there's no way he's getting it, and yeah, just completely yanked it into
Yeah.
the tree. That's not really a strength of his, those shots. Like you kind of knew Ricky's fine at them, and you knew Paul was hitting that gap.
Yeah, that's kind of Paul's bread and butter.
That's really his game. But you just didn't. And he went to the standstill, I think, for that last one too. Like you could tell he didn't really.
He wasn't super confident.
And I think
in it.
he definitely was scared of the early release, so he overcompensated and yanked it. Yeah, it was.
But then he still gave himself a putt to tie on 18. I think he chained out left from like 40 or 50 feet for the eagle. But yeah, I was definitely, even coming into the round with how good Eagle's been playing all year, I was like in my head going, Eagle's about to win his fifth Pro Tour of this year. But he was able to keep it close. And like you were saying, it was Ricky, Eagle, Paul, which I think week in and week out, those 3, one of them is most likely winning.
Yeah.
But we also, like I was saying a little bit earlier, had Gannon Buhr coming in 4th, which, friendly reminder, he turned 16 just a few months ago in May.
I was a little frustrated with the commentators because, and first of all, I'm not starting a commentator thing right now. Like, I don't really have, like, it was.
I'm going to make him start that later.
You can start that later, I guess. But I was a little frustrated because they typically latch on to storylines, maybe even a little too much for my taste on the Pro Tour Network sometimes. And the biggest story, like, they were very clearly covering Gannon Buhr through that last round. He just made birdie after birdie. I mean, he must have had 7 or 8 in a row. And they were very, like, kept flashing to him, watching him make his putts. And not one time during that hour in which they were showing every birdie putt he made did they mention that he was only 16. And I was like, that's the most like softball lob toss of a storyline as a commentator. Like, just say, hey, by the way, this guy's 16 years old and he's like just tearing this course apart right now.
Unless something's changed, I think he still doesn't have his driver's license.
I'm just
like he can't even be driven to the course to slap around these pros.
Gannon is somehow flying under the radar in a sport where it's kind of hard to fly under the radar, especially when you're a young talent. Maybe it's because he's with Prodigy and they're not quite as in the limelight these days. But like Gannon Buhr is 16 and is, what is he, 15th in the world right now?
Yeah, the UDIS World Ranking has him 15th.
Yeah, he's deservedly in 15th. He's consistently placing pretty high up there.
Let's look at his finishes this year. Actually,
He's just stone cold. Like, he does not seem to be phased at all, and he has a very smooth game. Like, Gannon Buhr is a very much like
he's like prime Will Schustrick is what his game looks like.
He's got a smooth putt, throws a disc far effortlessly. He's a future world champion.
So I'm only going to read the Pro Tour finishes for him this year. So the Preserve is not in it yet. So the Preserve was 4th. So just keep that in mind as I read through the rest. Okay. Waco came in 11th. Jonesboro Open 25th. World Championship 33rd. Des Moines 12th, Great Lakes Open 23rd, and then the Preserve 4th.
So his worst finish is 33rd.
And that was at Worlds.
There are not a lot of pros at all on the tour that can say that their worst finish has been 33rd.
His worst finish at a pro tour is 25th.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's very amazing. I mean, he's going to be a problem over the next few years. And that's the other thing is it's not just him.
Yeah.
It's just him on the pro tour. Like, he's the one that's kind of going out there right now.
Right.
But there is a lot of players that are similar skill set around his age that give them a few years to where they start touring.
The field's going to get shell-shocked in about 5 years from now. It's going to look a whole lot different than
There's even, what's his name? Is it Vino McKella? Is that his name? I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think he's like 19.
Right.
And he's over in, I believe he's either Estonian or Finnish, and he's filthy.
There's
he's like
a couple Germans that are good
1040 rated, and he's like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
I mean, when the whole field comes together and you give these young guns, the like 16, 17-year-olds, a few years to where they're touring, and you're also giving the top players in the sport a few years to where, like, you know, the Pauls and Rickies are getting, Paul's already in his 30s, Ricky's getting closer, and then you have 16, 17-year-olds that are able to, like, get up towards them.
Yeah.
You know, I think 5 to 7 years from now, we're going to have, Eagle, I think, will still be.
That's what I'm saying. Eagle is going to have.
Eagle's coming into his prime right now.
Eagle's going to have the toughest prime. He's going to have probably a tougher prime, arguably, than Paul or Rick, because when Paul and Rick were kind of going through their, I mean, they're still in their prime.
They're still in their prime. It's hard to know what disc golf prime
when they
is.
when they were first into their prime, it was really only each other that they had to beat. Whereas, like Eagle, you know, he might get like to his upper 20s where you could say he's really in his prime, and he might have to fend off all kinds of young talent that Paul and Ricky didn't have to deal with.
Yeah,
and it could be very interesting to see what the landscape. It's very exciting because, like, our field is still so young. I mean, it's just starting to become have a little more parity, and like there's a little more confusion as to who's going to take the win down each week, where it used to be a lot more straightforward. But it's just continuously, and each year as more guys get on tour, it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to find, I believe it was on Ultiroad, but I didn't know the conversation was going to go this way. But there was an article the other day I saw that was talking, it was some type of crazy stat. Here you go. It might be in this article. For the first time in 7 years, Paul McBeth is the #1 rated player in the world. I think it's in this article. So January 2014 was the last time McBeth didn't have at least a share of the world's best rating. Is it this article? February 11th? It was more recent than that. Dang it.
What are you looking for?
There was something where it was talking about the dominance of Paul and Ricky, where it was however many years that if like both of them were in it, both of them were in a tournament, they were both, maybe it's this is more recent. McBeth and Wysocki hit an unlikely streak. For the first time in their careers, Paul McBeth and Ricky Wysocki have played in 5 consecutive tournaments with both players in the field and without either of them winning. There you go. First time ever.
Wow.
For the first time ever in their careers, they've both been in a field for 5 events without either of them winning.
And that was
OTB Open, Master Cup, Portland Open, Pro Worlds, D-Glow, which went Eagle, Adam Hammes, Eagle, James Conrad, Eagle.
That's crazy.
That's the stat I saw.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so that kind of speaks to what you were saying of they're still in their prime, but they're just getting towards their later part of their prime.
Yeah.
I would say for both of them. It's hard to know what disc golf prime is. They might have 10 more years.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
But even if we have 10 more years, they've been in it for almost 10 years.
And the thing is,
they might be smack in the middle of it.
Yeah, the thing is, too, is Paul might be playing at the same talent level at age 38 as he is right now, but the field is going to get so much better around him that people are probably going to misjudge his prime because they're probably going to think he's out of his prime when really it's just... He's just as good as he was when he's 30.
It's just the
field got so much better. So it's going to be tough to judge. And one thing to note, too,
is Ricky's 3 years younger than Paul.
Ricky still has plenty of time.
But regardless, what I'm saying is, like, for the first, let's just call it 8 years of the Ricky and Paul era, it was literally Ricky and Paul.
Yeah.
Like, there was some people that snuck in and out. You know, at the beginning of it, there was the Will Schustrick, Nico. Then Nico and Will kind of faded off. Nico's kind of come back. Eagle stepped in there. There's been players that have come in and out, but it's been Ricky and Paul. It's been very clearly. This year, and even some last year, as it's come in, now you're starting to get where Adam Hammes can win, Eagle can win, James Conrad can win, Calvin Heimberg can win. All these players can consistently play at the level that Ricky and Paul have been playing at for years.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're speaking to is that's only going to get, the line of who's at the top is only going to get more blurry as this young talent like Gannon comes up. To where when Eagles in his Ricky and Paul era of dominance is going to look a lot different than theirs did.
I think that'd be a fun maybe podcast segment to do, is like our 2035 top 20 players in the world.
Oh gosh.
And like go into the future and then just try and like try to predict what it's going to look like. That would be fun. We'll have to do that. That's a good off-season topic. Yeah, it'd be incredibly subjective because like there's just no telling.
Because a lot of them we probably don't know yet.
Yeah, maybe we'd have to pick a year that was like when Paul and Ricky are around age, like their upper 30s, so that they could still be in the mix possibly.
I think we go like 2031. 10 years from now.
10 years from now.
So Paul and Ricky are getting to their 40s.
I think, but if they're in their 40s, it's a little too easy to throw them out. I think we need to make it so Paul's like 38, 39. So like if you could
2028. You could 2028 top 20.
You could potentially keep him in there, but it's going to be harder because there's going to be a lot of guys, because like your 16-year-olds are going to be entering their prime, essentially, like where Eagle is now.
Disc golf is going to get really fun really quick. I mean, there's no telling what the field's going to look like, even this time next year.
I've just seen too many like college-aged kids that are athletic pick up the sport over the last year and get good so fast.
They get good so fast.
To where if you do that with like athletic kids who are in middle school right now, they have all the time in the world.
Well, even we were talking about it at the weekly a while ago, where like it feels like the disc golfers as a whole have gotten better. Like not just the pros, but like we used to go to weeklies and you could pretty much count yourself as like a top 3 to 5 player at a weekly.
Right.
Like almost like if you were a good disc golfer, you're going to be in the top 3 to 5. Now I show up to a weekly and like there's some weeks where I'm happy if I'm in the top 10.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to the level of disc golf, because I feel like I might have been a little better a few years ago than I am now, but I haven't gotten that much worse.
Right.
But just everyone else has just kept gotten better. You know what I mean? And I've just kind of I've hit my 970 some wall that I'm just going to be stuck at the rest of my life. But other players just keep passing me. And I think that's just like disc golf in general.
Yeah.
Like the local scene is just a mirror of the pro tour.
I think we got to throw away your pro status so that we can try and get into AM doubles for like US AM doubles.
The issue with that is if I ever play a tournament and I show up in MA1, I mean, I might as well be stoned to death.
What are you talking about? You wouldn't even win.
I know I wouldn't win.
Yeah, so
but when people saw because locally I've won a few pro
nobody's gonna come after you.
I guarantee you.
Yeah, but they want
people used to come after me when I stayed in MA1.
What's their argument gonna be after you come in like 4th?
Well, after the tournament, that's a whole different story.
That's what I'm saying.
After I don't even cash at an MA1 event, that's a whole different story. You just gotta let
the dust settle for a while. We've been in retirement for a while now.
That's true. So I think I got to stay in retirement for a little bit, and then I'll email the PDGA like, "Hey, I've been in retirement for over a year. I want to come back as an AM."
Yeah.
Then I can come back.
It's gonna be hard to stay in retirement when like All Hyzers rolls around.
We're doing coverage and stuff for it.
For All Hyzers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It's on the tour.
So yeah.
Oh, that'd be really easy. All right, never mind. It's gonna be a piece of cake. That's the only event that would have tempted me. So.
Yeah, All Hyzers tempts me every year, but I refuse.
We're good. We're gonna stay in retirement through the year.
On the other side of the coin, at the Preserve, we had FPO. It wasn't a thrilling finish. Kristen Tatar. Well, I mean, it kind of was thrilling because Kristen Tatar just freaking dominated the field. She won by 10 over Paige. Haley Keene came in 3rd. I think Katrina Allen came in like 5th. Katrina lost by I think it was 18. The current world champ lost by like 18 to Kristen. I mean,
Paige and Kat are in trouble.
It's been a while since we've seen a win this big. And what's weird about it is I would have said that Kristen is the 3rd best European.
Coming into the season, that's everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
And like people were all talking about Kristen like as the one people forget about, but like it was all about Evelina and Henna, yeah,
who haven't come over. But so let's just keep that narrative that she was the 3rd best European, which right now in the world ranking she's the 2nd best. Evelina is the number 1 player in the world right now on the UDisc world rankings, and then Henna's I think right below Kat, and then Kristen's kind of in the middle there. But in her time in the U.S., she went 5th at Worlds, 1st at Clash of Canyons, 3rd at Des Moines, 1st at CCR, 1st at D-Glow, 1st at Preserve. The rest of the FPO field, specifically Paige and Kat, they better make sure that this offseason they do not get comfortable.
Yeah, it's gonna get real interesting because we might just start seeing the
there might be some parity domination. And it's just like, oh, Evelina won this weekend. Oh, Henna won this weekend. Oh, Kristen won this weekend. Right. Oh, back to Evelina. Oh, back to Evelina. Oh, wow, there's Paige. Like, Things could get very interesting very quick.
Imagine if we had another President's Cup right now. That European women's team would be fearsome.
Well, in general, I think the European team would win.
Over the men?
Yeah.
No.
I think so. The President's Cup?
What are you talking
about? The President's Cup is mixed men and women. It's just one team. You don't field two different teams.
But they do it. Well, I'm not sure how they ran it last time, but like how many points are the women responsible for? Because they play individual matches.
I'm not sure. I think it might have been 3-2.
That's what I'm saying, because I don't think the men aren't going to drop a match.
I don't know. You got Simon, Vino.
Oh, that's not true. Yes, that's right. They do have a couple guys. I mean, it could happen.
Seppo,
we need to have another President's Cup.
Payu, Vino.
We haven't seen
Kella,
Seppo in forever.
Simon. There's a lot of Europeans that we're just forgetting about because we haven't seen them. Albert Tam.
Would Simon still be considered European, like a European player? Okay, even though he lives in the U.S.
He lives in the U.S., but his citizenship's still German, I believe.
The way, I mean, in other sports, the way international competition works is you are allowed to play, like in soccer is the only example I really know, is you are always allowed to play for the national team of either the place you were born in, always, or the place you have citizenship in. Because some guys, like there's a guy, Diego Costa, for example. He was born in Brazil. He had citizenship in Spain because he played there for a long time. So he played for the Spanish national team. Then there's been other examples like that. So you always have those options.
Yeah. I don't know how the President's
Disc golf, I'm sure, isn't even structured
Yeah, I was
that
saying the President's Cup.
Simon can just play on the European team. Yeah.
They would just let Simon regardless
they need to bring that back.
Officials. But yeah.
Team match play events are like the most electric things in golf. Whenever the Ryder Cup is on, it is awesome. So cool.
Yeah, the President's Cup, I'm excited for whenever that's able to make a comeback. But the UDisc World Rankings right now have Evelina beating Paige 56% of the time currently. But I think that's a little skewed because we haven't even seen Evelina over here.
Right.
So it's tough to know if that would make that number be more in Paige's favor or it could make it more in Evelina's favor. It could be more like 60 to 70%. Yeah. There's no way to know.
Paige is just not hanging in there right now.
Paige is having, honestly, the entire USA FPO field is pretty lucky this year that they're able to capitalize on the boom of the sport and the building of their brand without Evelina, Henna, and Kristen.
Yeah, because you imagine how much less that like Paige and Kat, for example, would have earned from finishes this year if there were two more killers in the field.
Well, imagine even just the market share of fandom if you have, like, let's just say that Evelina and Henna and Kristen dominated this year. Let's just say they were over here and they dominated. And you have the boom of disc golf where it's blowing up. People are becoming fans of FPO players. They're going to naturally go to the ones at the top.
Sure.
So there would be a chance that Paige and Kat could have been like the third or fourth best players in the world versus right now 1 and 2. So they're very fortunate and hopefully they know it and it like propels them to make sure next season they are still 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But I think they're very fortunate that this year, the way things worked out, and it kind of sucks for Evelina and Henna on the other side of that coin. Because Kristen was able to get over here and at least show people like, hey, I still exist. I can still win by 10 strokes over the current FPO field. Evelina and Henna, unfortunately, haven't been able to do that. Yeah. I've heard a rumor that they might be able to come, which I don't know this was before the new surge of COVID and stuff like that. So there was a rumor that they were going to be able to make it over for U.S. Women's, the Women's National Championship, sorry. I don't know if that's still a possibility.
That would be really
cool. But it's definitely something that will be a storyline as the offseason comes around and goes on. Because that's definitely something that we're going to have to look at into next year.